This is Brett.
And this is Sean.
And this is bonus BS. And we can't do that right at all.
We should put that in the show right there. All right, hold on. Yeah. Bonus BS, a supplemental show to Gaming and BS podcast where we cover interviews and other such topics not found in our weekly episodes. Enjoy. The following recording takes place at Gamehole Con 2016, a gaming convention held in Madison, Wisconsin in November. The recording features Monte Cook and Shanna Germain from Monte Cook Games, where they oversee the design, development, and production of popular games such as Numenera, The Strange, and No Thank You Evil. We want to extend a sincere thank you to Monte and Shanna for allowing us to bring this to you.
We're really excited to be here at Gamehole Con. This is our first Gamehole Con. And so today we just kind of wanted to talk generally about some of the stuff that we're doing. And that's going to be a pretty brief thing, though, because what we really want to do is open things up to questions, find out what you guys want to talk about. Feel free to ask anything, even if it's not about Monte Cook Games, but just about other stuff we worked on or anything. You know, we're here for you. But first, we should probably tell you who we are. So, Shanna?
I'm Shanna Germain. I'm co-owner of Monte Cook Games. I've been a writer and editor for 27 years now. And I am currently one of the lead designers for the company.
And I'm Monte Cook. I've worked in tabletop RPG design for just shy of 30 years now. I've worked on Dungeons and Dragons and Rollmaster and Champions and a lot of different things. I used to have a D20 company called Malhavoc Press. I technically still do. It's just not putting up very much stuff. And now we have Monte Cook Games, which we started back in 2012 with a Kickstarter for a game called Numenera. And we are still producing Numenera, lots of exciting stuff coming up for Numenera. But since that time, we have also released a number of other games, and we have more exciting stuff coming in the future. So why don't we just start talking about some of the upcoming stuff that we've got, or maybe the stuff that is coming out like right now. Probably starting with the Numenera starter set.
Yeah.
Speaking of Numenera. Literally any day now, we are going to be releasing a box set for Numenera. It is got a low price point. It's an introductory product. If you already play Numenera, this product is not for you.
Do not buy it.
This product is for your friend who's really interested in Numenera, or your nephew or something to give to them for Christmas or something like that. But it is just a $25 set that will get someone started with Numenera, all the basic rules, an adventure, all the little bits and pieces that you need to play, and get going pretty quickly. And yeah.
Will the adventure be exclusive to this introduction Numenera box set, or is it something else that is an application of the existing adventure?
There is nothing. If you already are a Numenera player, there's nothing new in this box. So there's nothing for you.
Especially since I own the exclusive Numenera box.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, the hardest part will be telling people, don't buy it. Don't buy it.
This is for new players. And part of why we're doing this is because early next year, In Exile Studios is going to be putting out a video game, Torment Tides of Numenera, which is going to introduce lots and lots of new people to Numenera. We're very excited about this, and this is a great transition for them if they are computer game players or console players and they want to transition into our crazy world. This is a great way to do it. So we're very excited about Torment. We're very excited about the starter set. But what else do we have?
I was just making a list, and I was like, wow, we're busy. So since we're talking about Numenera, The Poison Eater is coming out in January, which is the first Numenera novel. If you back the Kickstarter, you get a hardbound, exclusive, really beautifully interior illustrated book. And then Angry Robot Books is also partnering with us to produce a a paperback version that will be available in bookstores, and so those will both be out in January. And we also are doing a bunch of things that are not Numenera. So Monty said we've done other things. One of the things we've done is something called the Cipher System, which is sort of the engine behind Numenera that is more sort of genre agnostic. You can kind of put any genre that you want into it. And so we have some things coming out for that, including Expanded Worlds, which we're working on right now, which is a sort of an extension of different genres that you can put, like post-apocalyptic, or what are some of the other ones that we're doing? I think there's
steampunk
and childhood adventure, which is sort of inspired by Stranger Things, which is fun.
We play kids. Basically, if you're familiar at all with the Cipher System rulebook, there's a whole section in there that is chapters that are just about the various genres. And this book is like an extension of that part of the book with more genres. So it'll talk about foci and descriptors and creatures and equipment and everything. Some of which will be brand new to that book, made specifically for those genres.
So we're working on that, and then along with the Cipher System, we are also we're working on Predation, which is a time travel dinosaur genre that will be out next year. We just play tested it last night here, and it was super fun. We had a great time. It's an interesting one because you get to play a dinosaur companion in addition to your own character. So you play someone else's dinosaur companion. And so we play tested those mechanics last night, and I had a great time. I don't know about my players, but it's very fun to manage that. So that'll be out next year. We also have Into the Outside, which is another Numenera product, which follows the Into the Deep and Into the Night. Sorry, it's been a while. And this one sort of goes multidimensional, transdimensional, just sort of way out there, weirdness, kind of really. And Bruce Cordell wrote the majority of that, and it is just fantastical and weird and kind of wonderful. So that's also in progress. And then the other thing that we have coming out really soon, actually, is something called Story Please. If you guys play No Thank You Evil with your kids, which is our family role-playing game, we just got the prototypes. I'm so excited. This is our 100-card deck that you can use to build adventures on the fly for that game. We're doing a Kickstarter for that right now. These should be available by Christmas if you back the Kickstarter, and then they'll be available in the spring in stores. And we have the NPC deck, which is. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
The NPC deck is basically a genre agnostic thing that will allow you, like a lot of our other decks. It's an aid for the GM. If you just need an NPC really quickly, you can draw them out. It'll have a couple of different names depending on what genre you're talking about. It'll have, a unique quirk for that person, an appearance for that person, and maybe, some kind of special hook or something. So it's really good for on the fly, needs that a game master has. One of the things that we have really stressed with the Cipher System a lot is freeing up the GM from a lot of painstaking preparation ahead of time, and the ability to sit down and just sort of create a story with the players, as you're sitting there at the table. And so a lot of these kind of products that we're putting out are just tools that make things easier. They're the kinds of things that I use just on my own anyway, and so we've just sort of turned them into products.
And I have two more. One is, if you're a fan of The Strange, the novel The Myth of the Maker will be out spring of next year as well. That has been written and is in editing. Again, we're doing a deluxe illustrated hardcover book from the Kickstarter, and then Angry Robot is also producing that in game stores or in bookstores around the country, and actually they're UK, so around the world. And the last one, of course, is Invisible Sun, which is a ways off, but that's what Monty's currently working on, and so that's very much in our vision right now.
Did we mention the asset deck?
I don't think so.
The asset deck is another one of these cool little things to help kind of the story move along. Just wanted to throw it out there because it's actually quite different from the decks that we've done in the past, because this one is very much a player-facing product. The game master has a deck of asset cards, and as you're playing, for whatever reason, maybe to reward some good role playing, or because they bought you pizza or whatever, you can hand out a couple of these cards to players. And these cards are cool because They give the player just a tiny bit of narrative control over things. They are like, I just had some inspiration. I just came up with the exact right thing to say in this conversation. I, just happened to have exactly the right type of screwdriver to fix this machine, right? Those kinds of things that a player can sort of pull out, use when they want to, when they feel the need to. And it really kind of spices things up, I think, a little bit and makes things really interesting without like just upending the whole game and turning it into something that is, totally freeform or with a total player narrative control.
I think that's it, unless you want to get into the next year farther. But those are kind of the things that we are looking at coming out in the next 6 months or so. Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff probably that's kind of too far out there that we don't want to talk about yet. But we can talk a little bit about Invisible Sun just very briefly. Invisible Sun is a brand new role-playing game that we're going to be coming out with at the end of next year, basically about a year from now. And Invisible Sun, without going into too much depth, is a game of surreal fantasy. It takes a couple of different ideas and meshes them together from a gameplay standpoint. One of those is basically the whole thing kind of wraps around the idea that it's hard to get your group together. It's hard to get a group of us, adults together to play a game. So number one, it really celebrates when we finally can do that. So the game itself is packaged with a lot of great useful things that you'll have right at the table to make the tabletop experience really fun. Cards and tokens and things like that are very tactile, very visual, and meant to really enhance that experience. But also the other sort of focus that it has with that same idea in mind is because we can't get the whole group together as often as possible or as often as we'd like. One of the things that Invisible Sun offers is the ability to create what we call development mode. This is as in character development. And what development mode of your game does is it creates sort of the side scenes and the in-between scenes and even flashbacks that can occur with your character, so that maybe just you and the game master get together, not at the table, not with tons of stuff, probably not even with dice, and work out something that happens along the side, something that happened in the past, whatever. You can do this at the coffee shop, in 15 minutes. You can do it via email or text, if you can't get together. It's a very sort of casual side thing, but it is integrated into the actual game. And, if you, when we did the Kickstarter, we did a video that kind of showed an example of that. And it's often the example that I throw out there, right? In that, we see the players and they're all gathered around the table, and the session ends as they reach this barrier that they don't know how to get across. They want to get to this library, this magical library, but they don't know how to get through this weird magical barrier. And in between sessions, one of the players thinks to herself, it's quite possible I've been here before. I did a lot of traveling with my mentor. And so she comes to the game master, who's me in the video, and we have sort of this flashback scene where, yes, indeed, she did go to this place once before, and because she was able to use her kind of stealthy skills, she was able to spy on her mentor, who did the right things to get past this magical barrier, so that the next time when the session starts, right, and we're back up and running with the whole group around the table, she just announces that she knows how to get through this barrier, right? And she solves the problem, and play progresses. So you can see how these things kind of mesh together, even when you are playing the game out of chronological order, basically, right? With flashbacks and stuff, and it's that kind of thing that I think makes it gives Invisible Sun the opportunity to have a lot of the narrative kinds of storytelling opportunities that we see all the time in fiction and in our cool episodic television shows and whatnot. It allows us to kind of recreate that in a role-playing game way that I don't know that there's a lot anything like it out there, actually. So we're very excited about that. It's literally what I'm working on right now.
In the hotel.
In the hotel. And we're very excited about it. We're going to start playtesting here in a few months, and it's going to be great.
Monty, are you going to playtest in any particular places or locations?
So we've actually started playtesting what I call sort of the alpha playtest, which is just us, the sort of the team in Seattle. There will be a larger outside playtest that'll start in hopefully December, maybe around Christmas or New Year's, Well, so what we did was it was a part of the Kickstarter. We also have beyond that some people that we have sort of relied on a lot in the past. But if you're interested, you can use the contact form on MonteCookGames.com. And I don't know all the ins and outs of how exactly we're gonna communicate with people because I have people for that.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So right now, if you didn't back the Invisible Sun Kickstarter and you're interested in playtesting, there is a level in the Kickstarter where you can pay to be part of the playtest. And our backer kit is still open, correct? So you can go. So we have backer kit.
That's a way to ensure.
So if you want to be part of the playtest, for sure, you can go to backer kit and back at that level, and you will definitely be included in the playtest.
I just got the email. Backer kit closes on the 17th of November.
Thank you.
So.
17th. So you have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of hearing about this idea of kind of playing separate side scenes, like outside adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Something that with another game, something that I kind of consider doing kind of separate kind of scene with just one or two characters and the GM sort of kind of just talking for less, or even kind of. So actually spend kind of flashback scenes with the GM. I hearing about this kind of that this isn't as big as 13th Age did not have incentives for doing this, but it was something that I wanted to do because it actually really let me bring out my character in the story.
Yeah, well, we've definitely found that this is a great way to have interesting character development. And it's also one of the things that I love about it and that I'm really excited about is, so from a game design point of view or a game master point of view, one of the things that you learn is that because role-playing is a group activity, you avoid storylines where basically one person is involved, or you're basically motivating one person. Because of course, if that person is at the table and you're playing through their, the thing that they want to do, the quest that they want to undertake, you've got 3 or 4 other people sitting there at the table not doing anything and bored, right? And so we learned that that's the wrong thing to do. But with development mode, we can once again have sessions where we can have whole storylines, right, that basically are involving one character. And in a perfect world, what happens is that character starts sort of that storyline. There's a mechanic in the game called a character arc, right? And everyone has at least one character arc kind of going at a time, and that's sort of your personal motivation. But it can suddenly sort of begin to branch into the entire group. For example, in some of the playtesting that we've done, one of the characters. So the genre of Invisible Sun, like I said, is a surreal fantasy, and so everyone in the game uses magic in some way, but that doesn't mean that everyone's a D&D wizard, right? It's a sort of very different thing than that. But player characters, these people who use magic in the world, they're called Vizsla, and all Vizsla. One of the things that's true about them is that almost all Vizsla, anyway, have a house, and your house is an interesting extension of you. In fact, as your character advances, in the same way that you can choose new abilities or improve your stats or whatever, you can instead and use some of those options as you're moving up to actually improve your house, right? And so now you've got some kind of defense system in your house that you've chosen so that the glass in the windows, if anyone tries to break in, suddenly liquefies and turns into tentacles and grabs them, right? That's an option that you can have on your Vizsla house. And so in the playtest that we've been doing, because another aspect of houses is that there's always something about your house that you don't fully know, right? You kind of go into this thing knowing that there's going to be secrets to still uncover about your own house. And so one player, Bruce, found a door in his house one day that wasn't there before and did not know how to open it. And so kind of was doing side scenes to try to figure out how to open this, and finally found out through research, talking to people, that there was this spell that if he got a hold of it, he could cast it and probably open this door. But he knew that he couldn't do it on his own. So at that point, he came to the rest of the group. And so suddenly that character arc, that one thing that had been motivating just him, now motivates the entire group. And one of the things that really excites me as a game master from that point of view is all of this is entirely player driven, right? This isn't other than saying, oh, you found a door. There's no sort of GM nudging. There's no adventure hook, right? It's all the players sort of doing this on their own, deciding to help Bruce, on their own and being motivated. No, it worked out. Anyway, so that's Invisible Sun, or that's a tiny glimpse at Invisible Sun. But it is almost 2:30. So why don't we open it up and talk about what you guys want to talk about?
Yeah. Oh, good. He's got a microphone. I love it.
Your beginner set. What age group is that? How young can you?
Do you mean the beginner Numenera?
Yes.
Or the
Yes. Sorry.
Medieval? Okay.
So, we don't have like an age range, but I would say, that a young teen, maybe 12-year-old, that kind of age group would be fine. Numenera is not a particularly difficult game, and there's certainly no content really, that's inappropriate.
So would a young teenager be able to do it on their own, or would you still want something a little more mature to help them run through that? Would this be something you can set down in front of a 12-year-old?
I started playing when I was 10, so
Yeah.
I mean, I think they'd be just fine, right? There are plenty of the box is designed not only to teach players but new GMs as well. So all of that is right in the box.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let you do it.
So when you're kind of talking about the side kind of arcs in Invisible Sun and kind of running players one-on-one, help, guiding them through things that they want to do on their own, separate from the greater party.
Right.
From a GM perspective, it's really exciting. And I'm curious, from a game design perspective, what's kind of been the biggest challenge you found with having these side missions and trying to bring them back to the whole party and keep it just as exciting for everybody as it was for that one player?
Well, a game design, I don't know if it was the biggest one, but a game design challenge is dealing with the idea that, what if you've got a group where you've got, one or two players who want to be doing these side scenes all the time, and you've got one person who just doesn't, right? And because that's got to be okay from the point of view of the game, but you don't want the other characters to advance way faster or just become better, more improved characters than the others. So creating that balance and putting some safeguards on that is an interesting design challenge that I'm still kind of working on. It really is the character arc concept, which has been an interesting challenge, but one that I'm really happy with what it comes out, because what it means is again, it's all player driven, right? You decide my character is going to have this. At the beginning, you're going to start with an arc, right? And it can be any of a number of different arcs that are sort of designed in a very general way that you then are guided through to make specific. So, for example, there's a revenge character arc, right? And so the way that works is, you sort of fill in the blanks, almost Mad Libs style, right? Of like, who you want to get revenge on and why and whatnot. And then the character arc mechanic kind of guides you through the steps. And so the way that works is, you might have a few steps that are, tracking down the evildoer, right? And each one of those, once you reach those milestones, is going to earn you what's called acumen, which is like XP in the game. And then, every arc has a climax, or rather, not a climax, but a I can't remember the name. We'll say climax. But, a point where everything comes to head, right? You find the guy, you confront him. But we don't know exactly, how that's going to come out, right? When it's a game, it's not a story all by itself, right? And so maybe you find the guy and he gets away. Maybe he, beats the crap out of you. That kind of thing. So there is another currency of experience points in Invisible Sun that is collectively called Crux, but Crux is divided into two components. One is called joy, and one is called despair. And so in order to have a Crux to spend on various things, you need both a point of joy and a point of despair. Well, if you track this guy down and you get your revenge, yay, point of joy, right? He gets away, point of despair, right? And so, and there are different ways to earn joy and despair, but I really like, having done a lot of fiction writing as well as game design, I really like the fusion of these two things, because it is exactly the way a fiction writer sort of tracks his character arcs, right? With the step, the sort of the climax, and then a resolution, a denouement, and you can have multiple character arcs going at once, and but one of the sort of stopgaps of that is once you start. You start with one for free, but after that you sort of pay XP to get in. But the more XP acumen that you pay at the beginning, the bigger the rewards. It's like going to Vegas, right? The more you ante in, the more XP that you can earn out, assuming you accomplish the entire character arc. Anyway, that's. I'm going on and on about it because that's what I'm working on right now, right? And it's all in my head. But it is something that's really exciting to me, and it's exciting because I've never worked with anything like this before, and I've never seen anything quite like this before. So
one of the great moments too is when those two unique character arcs start to cross. So here's the guy seeking revenge, and here's the guy seeking to save somebody who saved his life, and it turns out they're the same people. And so then you have this great interaction of the characters. It's not always antagonistic, right? They don't always have different goals. Sometimes they have the same goals, but that opportunity for these unique character story arcs to kind of come together in a cool way is really exciting, because the crux of gaming is making hard decisions as a character. And so that just sort of, you've worked so hard and so long to get to this place, and now you have this really hard decision, and I love that moment.
One of the things that is going to come in the Invisible Sun box, in fact, is a separate book called The Guiding Hand, which is sort of half notebook, half sort of instruction guide. And it basically talks about exactly that. You, as the GM, are keeping track of what using it to keep track of what different character arcs your players are using, but then it also kind of guides you and suggests, hey, here's a way to mesh these two, or here's a good point in which to bring this into the whole group and whatnot. So it's part record keeping, part kind of helping hand.
Hey, I have a question about The Strange. I thought Worlds Numberless and Strange was a really cool product. And I guess, could you guys talk maybe a little bit about what you think of things like that going forward? Like, there are so many options. There are big ticket books that have recursions in them. There are glimmers. You have, possible fan content. Like, how does the recursion verse, like, for lack of a better term, expand going forward with all those options?
So, there's some exciting stuff coming up for The Strange that I can't fully talk about yet. But
We're not
We
being
promise we'll be
recorded.
good.
It's all good.
Come on.
But one of the things that I love about The Strange is sort of the limitless options and opportunities that it offers, and the very nature of The Strange itself. Where these recursions are taking seed, is that it's always growing, because especially all of these ones that are from fictional bleed from our own world, right? I mean, you mentioned Stranger Things earlier, right? So you can imagine Stranger Things is this sort of brand new bit of fiction. So you can imagine that maybe a brand new recursion that would not be very big yet, right, has already developed in The Strange. But Stranger Things plays off of older tropes, right? And so maybe there's these weird connections between the Stranger Things recursion and, some Stephen King style recursion, right? Because they're playing off of each other. And I love that aspect of it. And so, that's something that we want to continue to explore. Bruce's novel, which we did mention, do you know when that comes out?
Myth of the Maker, I think, is March or April of next year. And
that does a really fun. It's a really fun way to sort of explore the idea of a recursion's creation and growth, right? Because it basically gives you the story of how Arden became a recursion. And so, there's no reason to think that, we're going to reach an end point necessarily, right? I mean, at least the setting itself is not self-limiting.
But the first person who does a super meta game where they play the Myth of the Maker as a recursion gets super bonus points, and I want to hear all about it.
That's a good point.
And was kind of wanted to back to a creative question just to make my own tabletop RPG. But secondly, one question kind of for just a strange brought up. I wonder what would happen if someone who created alternative identity character for stuff in the very community game making it for sale. What would happen if that character kind of transferred to Strange Wood? I was kind of thinking about what if that fact of doing that would kind of cause the transfer to kind of transfer into the character that they've made. Is that possible?
Sure, right?
You can try anything.
Anything that's going to make a good story, and particularly something that's so character focused, I think would be great.
So I was wondering, given that No Thank You Evil is for younger gamers, how is the playtesting process for that game different, or is it different than what you normally do?
So we when we play tested the original game, so if someone doesn't know, No Thank You Evil is our family game. And we say family rather than kids because one of our goals was we realized that most families don't have 3 5-year-olds, and so our goal with the game was to make it so that if you have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old, you can sit down and play the same game with kids of all ages. And so our playtesting really looked at that. Can we sit down with kids of a bunch of different ages? And we also specifically called in our playtest for kids who had ADHD, who were on the autism spectrum, who had Asperger's, all those kinds of things, because we really wanted to see if I have a table of 5 children who all have unique things that they're dealing with, can a GM sort of work through and make that happen? So it was very, very different because, well, first of all, playing with kids is so different because it just goes off the rails so fast. And also because kids are amazing storytellers inherently, right? They get the character, they get the stories, they're like, let's go. But then they're like, wait, there are rules? That sucks. Whereas I find that with adult players and playtesting stuff, you're sometimes like, no, I know you guys get the rules, but let's try to role play. Let's try to do the character stuff. And so for us, it was really, can we make characters and adventures fast enough to keep their attention? My sort of way of thinking about it is that I'm always competing with a puppy. And so if there's a puppy running around the table and if I can keep the kids engaged anyway, then we're in a good place. We didn't always succeed, but we got really close. Puppies are hard. And so we really looked at that. We looked at, can we keep their attention? Do they feel engaged? So it was very different for me where we were looking at how simple can we make the rules and still have rules was kind of what we were thinking about. Do you have more for that?
No, that covers it pretty nicely.
Yeah.
I am in full support of that. Just saying this as someone who was born in the arts respect myself. Please keep making this project here, and I would highly recommend it to like the Autism Society here, just as you have a full support for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I second that. My son's 15, he's autistic, so yeah, thanks for doing stuff like that. I appreciate it. On another tangent, what would you recommend is the best way to start writing for Cypher, getting yourself into that game design space, and where can we go where we can actually show that stuff off without infringing on Monte Cook Games?
Well, so to answer the second part first, we have a program with DriveThruRPG called the Cypher Creator, where you can, if you're familiar at all with Wizards of the Coast's DMs Guild, where they sort of give people the ability to do their own D&D modules. They worked with DriveThru, and then to create that, DriveThru then came to us and said, "Would you like to do something similar?" So it's a very sort of similar kind of thing. And I would say from a design point of view, when it comes to the Cypher system, the most important thing is the story. And the second most important thing is the characters. And I hope that that's reflected in the system itself. And so once you start working with the system, you'll see that, the rules heavy parts of it, the heavy lifting for the game system is all built right into the characters, right? And so the characters are driving the mechanics of the game. The other mechanics, right? The mechanics that we have for non-player characters and creatures and stuff like that are just dirt simple. They're just, give something a level, maybe make one modification to that and go, right? And then characters are much more elaborate. You've got different pieces that you're fitting together with the Cypher system. And so that's, from a design point of view, that's very intentional, and that is it kind of goes along with the idea that at the table the game master is not referencing a lot of rules, not relying on a lot of books and tables and charts and things like that, but is instead focused mostly on the story. And so always with the Cypher system, we're kind of keeping the game master free from having a lot of weight on their shoulders mechanically, and that's why we don't have a ton of subsystems and heavy rules related, like when we knew that we needed to create vehicle rules, right? We didn't want to get into sort of the really hyper realistic nitty gritty stuff. We wanted to keep it open and flowing so that the game master doesn't have a lot of that stuff kind of weighing on him or her. So that's where I go when I am sitting down to work with a Cypher system, is just thinking about those two things, right? And because once you realize that you don't want to create a lot of new rules material unless it's character options, right? It's why we have 2 books for Numenera called Character Options and a book for the Strange called Character Options. That's where all, if you want new mechanics, if you want new mechanical elements to the game, that's where you put them. And I think that at least for a certain type of player, that's exactly kind of the way they want it, right? Because a lot of that happens before you even sit down at the table. You can tinker, I want to take this focus because, at tier 3, I get this cool ability, and make those decisions before you get there. And then once you're actually at the table, it's pretty rules light.
Yeah, and I think mine are sort of practical side, which is playtest. I think that playtesting is invaluable to getting responses, and part of playtesting is really letting the players sort of break it, and then kind of seeing what you want to do from there, and like sort of going in with the understanding that they're going to break your game, and that's okay. And then having editors is really, really important, whether you're doing it for the Cypher creator or yourself, I think. And then for me, because I come from a fiction background, when I started writing things like adventures, I had to go and look at other adventures and kind of break them apart and kind of see like what are the parts that work, what are the parts that don't, and then you would run it and you would say, okay, well, this is the part that isn't on the page and I had to make up. And so you start to understand like what needs to be on the page for the GM. And so for me, it's been a lot of thinking. I've had to relearn how I think about writing to make sure that everything that the GM needs is there. Because the player, like if you're writing fiction, the readers don't need anything ahead of time, right? You sort of, the slow reveal is the way. When I first started writing adventures, Monte was like, you have to tell the GM these things because it would be like the last ta-da. So I think thinking about what the GM needs is super, super important. The other thing is we do have a website about fan use that tells you how you can publish stuff like on your own website, and so how you can do fan use stuff without violating the copyrights. And it's pretty liberal. I mean, we let you use some of our art, and we say as long as it's not downloadable or an app, you can post it on. Like you can do stuff on your blog and stuff like that. So there's a lot of leeway if you're just looking to sort of get the experience and get the word out there as well.
Over the last couple of years, what games or fiction have you guys been consuming that's been kind of like influencing your design space or kind of bringing new ideas to that you hadn't thought of before?
So lately I've been focused pretty heavily on Invisible Sun, which is, a combination of finding the weirdest stuff that I can get my hands on and consuming that as quickly as I can, and sort of immersing myself in the real world occult. The interesting challenge for Invisible Sun is that it is this very heavily occult game, but there's no real world occult to it. So Invisible Sun has all the elements that we're used to see, we're used to seeing with the occult, but all of it is new. So there isn't a tarot deck, but there is a tarot-like deck of cards called the Sooth deck, and there isn't a sort of an astrological idea with astrological signs and whatnot, but there is this concept called your secret soul, which there are only 13 different secret souls, and so everyone has sort of their own secret soul. But if two people share a secret soul, they share some commonalities. But of course, it's secret, so it's really difficult to find those people. That's actually a big part of the game. But anyway, there's just all these different elements, and then one of the things that I find fascinating, one of the things that I love in reading about stuff like that is just how, because it's been around for so long, it's all so intertwined and interconnected, right? And so you've got people who are writing about the Kabbalistic tree of life, but how that interacts with astrology and how it interacts with the tarot and stuff like that. So I want to make sure that also is true in Invisible Sun, how it's all interwoven and complex. And I like creating settings that are sort of deep as the players and the game master want to go, right? So if you want to just kind of do sort of surface stuff, you can play Numenera, for example, that just kind of wacky far futures hijinks, right? And not really sort of delve too deeply into it. But if you want to delve deeply into it, I hope that there is a lot of stuff there that you can really kind of get into, a lot of world building kinds of things. And so anyway, I'm really getting off on a tangent. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff that I've mostly been reading.
So I'm in a weird place right now because I just finished a Numenera novel. And I'm working on an adventure for Shadow of the Demon Lord, which, if you guys know anything about this, is super deep dark. I'm working on something for No Thank You Evil, which is called Uh-Oh Monsters, which sounds just like it sounds. And of course, I'm working on Predation, which is a time travel dinosaur book. So to say that my reading is eclectic is sort of an understatement. But the things that I have been loving is I do read a lot of nonfiction. So I have a huge stack of dinosaur books. I have a huge stack of like far future, DNA, time travel, very, very science heavy, which is mostly for inspiration because I read through it and I go, oh, I'm going to steal this and break it apart and use it for this other thing. I also really like books of like symbols or books of animals and mythology. And so I have a lot of those on my desk for reference to just sort of open and be like, oh, this is what a tree means and all these different things. And I like these ideas. The best fiction that I have read this year is The Library at Mount Char, which I highly, highly recommend. It's super beautiful. It actually reminds me a little bit of Invisible Sun in that there's some cool surreality to it. I'm reading Monstrous right now, which is a comic that I super love. I'm a big comic reader too, so I take a lot of inspiration from that. And also the magazine Nautilus, which, if you guys don't recommend, actually was a gift from a player, and I'm so grateful that she introduced us to it because we love it. It's a quarterly publication that focuses on science and literature, which of course is, hello. And it always has different themes, and it's just super glorious. I think that's kind of. I also take a lot of inspiration. I know this isn't what you asked, but I take a lot of inspiration from music and movies, and currently TV. TV is just so fantastic, and so I listen to a ton of different music to sort of inspire me. Right now, we're watching Westworld, which is such a great, super inspiration. And we're sort of delighted to be here, but sad that we're missing the Doctor Strange premiere as well. So, so that's my list. I often take pictures of the books that are like on my desk and stuff to kind of show people. And so if you follow me on Twitter too, you can sometimes just sort of see the range of things that I am currently have my nose in. So.
Go ahead.
I find asking if the Strange was actually inspired in any way by Doctor Strange.
Not a lot.
That's not a no.
Well, when we decided to call it The Strange, I certainly didn't mind the Doctor Strange connection because I'm a huge Doctor Strange fan. But the Strange has so many different inspirations. Anything having to do with like lots and lots of multiple universes and stuff like that. But one of the things that I love about The Strange is that it is its own unique beast. It isn't just a setting of parallel dimensions, right? Because specifically dealing with fiction, right? And all of the recursions, all of everything that is in The Strange is actually based on fiction, and I think that that's a nice, unique spin on the multiple worlds exploring kind of thing.
Which I believe, and I haven't explained it to so many people who didn't actually know about.
Cool.
That's awesome.
And actually, kind of found a world that I can really kind of take myself deeply into.
I think at least I hope that The Strange is definitely something that is something you can dig pretty deep into. With all the different possibilities of you can. There are people out there who, were playing their homebrew D&D game for a very long time, and then they got The Strange, and that suddenly their homebrew D&D world became a recursion that their characters could then go visit as people, from Earth, exploring, a world that they, as players, already knew all about, but were exploring it, from a third-person perspective.
Yeah, I would say, if I would actually kind of thought about doing this because if I'm not playing like a game, not letting to play a game that's in my in-parts RPG, I'd want to play a game of Strange where the world of my in-parts RPG would be recursion.
Very cool.
So you kind of talked about predation and all the science reading that you're doing right now. How do you decide how much like science to bring into a game like Predation, and then how much like science fiction to bring into a game like Predation? You know, how do you like make those design decisions as you're working on a game like that?
Well, Predation is pretty interesting because Monty came to me and said, hey, if you could write any game setting, what would it be? And I said, dinosaurs. And then I said, but I don't really want to write about dinosaurs. I want to be able to write about dinosaurs plus. And so that's where the time travel part came in. And so Predation is actually set in the future when time travel is a thing, where those people time travel back to the Cretaceous period. And they've now been stuck there for 100 years, which means that the people who originally traveled back are dying out. And so your players are actually probably the descendants of those time travelers. And so the cool thing about that for me is I can look at all the information that we know about dinosaurs right now. And like as I'm writing this game, it's like every day some new information comes out. Oh, not only do they have feathers, but they hum. They don't actually roar. Like all of these cool things that, you know, they just discovered what they think is a fossilized dinosaur brain for the first time. And so I feel I'm in this crazy place of writing where the technology and the science keeps changing. But for me, the really cool thing is that because time travel doesn't happen until at least 100 years from now, as we are, think of all the things that we will have discovered in 100 years about dinosaurs. There will be new dinosaurs. We'll have all kinds of cool additional sort of fossil discoveries. We'll have discovered new things. We'll have more DNAs. And so I'm able to take everything that we know as science right now and imagine what 100 years of additional science and scientific discoveries will do for dinosaurs. And that's, for me, very exciting. And so I really start with a science base. We're working hard to have the art be sort of accurate in terms of what we know about feathers and coloration and frills and all sizes and all of this other stuff. But then we also get to tweak it one more time. Because 100 years in the future, we will have cybernetics and robotics and DNA, information storage. And so all of that technology will have come back into the Cretaceous period, which means that in 100 years, they will have bioengineered dinosaurs. There will be cybernetic dinosaurs. There will be dinosaurs with lasers in their mouths and laser eyes. And so, so I'm able to really start from this base of science and then just kind of run wild with it. And so there's this really cool thing when they talk about dinosaurs, which is sort of this idea that there are things that we know for sure, and then there are things that we can extrapolate. And so the things that we know for sure are things that we can tell from skeletons, but we can extrapolate that dinosaurs probably went into caves and licked the minerals off the cave ceilings because that is what dinosaur-like animals do now. And so there's these extrapolations that we can make about science that make sense even though there's no proof. And so I'm working really hard to have those kinds of things that really make a lot of sense, but we haven't proven yet, because I figure in 100 years we will prove it. And even if we don't, by then nobody's going to be playing Predation, so they won't know. So I really love the science, and then I love really the opportunity to break it apart. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of the perfect opportunity for me to do that. So I got all excited there.
To move from influences to recommendations, are there any games that you enjoy that are non-Monte Cook games that you think haven't got as much attention as they deserve in the gaming space?
Wow, that's an
that is a
interesting
great
question.
Give me 1 second, because I have some. Oh, God, but I'm horrible with names.
So there's a game that is primarily a miniatures sort of combat game, but it has really heavy role-playing elements called Kingdom Death, and it has these beautifully gory and grotesque miniatures of things that you can fight and whatnot. And the nice thing, you buy it. It's this big, expensive box, but you get everything, right? You have all the miniatures are in there, all the rules and cards and everything. So I'm a fan of that. I'm anxious to get a Kingdom Death game going, and I think that would be really cool. What do you got?
So I was thinking about is it The Fall, the one that scrolls on the scroll?
The Fall of Magic.
The Fall of Magic, which is this fantastic story-based game that it was really outside my comfort zone, and that's part of the reason I like it. I don't like the attention on me, and this is a thing where like everyone has to have their attention on you for a strong period of time. But it's really beautifully made. It's beautifully done. It's by someone who's local to us near Seattle. They did a Kickstarter for it, but I don't think it's gotten a ton of attention out there.
But the whole game is you have this scroll that has a fantasy map on it, and basically you're unrolling the scroll to show the progress of the game.
And then it flips over, and there's a whole part of the world on the other side, and yeah, it's super beautiful. It is.
Yeah, it's a real scroll.
Linen scroll. It's so beautiful.
The Fall of Magic.
The Fall of Magic.
$700 was worth it. It's only a game you play once. It's the same scroll, right?
No, but it's different every time because of the mechanics. The mechanics are sort of this beautiful, elegant thing, and you play different characters, and you have a token, and so like Monte was talking about with Cypher System stuff being character driven, it's super character driven, and so the story is utterly different every time you play it, and that's kind of amazing. Like I want to sort of break that apart and figure out how that works because it's pretty cool. It's like a choose your own adventure with infinite choices, which is awesome. This is actually a computer / iPad game. I don't know if that counts, but it's called The Frost, and it's a card game that's on the iPad that I absolutely adore. It's sort of like a survival game. You're walking through the frost and trying to survive, and I don't know. It's just one of those things that I pick up, when I've been writing for 3 hours and I need a break, and it's this really. I've heard people who hate the art style, but I love it. It's just this really kind of cool and calming. Like it's all white, and you just hear your feet crunching through the frost, and then you die. What else?
That's awesome. Well, if we're gonna,
this is why I don't get to be the salesperson.
If we're gonna include like video games and computer games, there's this really obscure little console game that I've been preoccupied with for almost a year now called Fallout 4. No, really, I've sunk a lot of time in Fallout 4.
We just played a board game recently.
And I just restarted Skyrim 2, yeah.
We're showing our weaknesses.
Or is that just, or are you not doing game? Or are you just playing on the console?
I'm playing on console, yeah.
Well, that objectives was there, and I'm actually out of that for disclosure.
Oh, cool.
It's up there for the special edition too.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to think that. Well, I was thinking about Evolution, but I don't know how hidden that is. But that's lovely. There's a board game called Evolution that probably most people know about. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell how many people, what's sort of hidden gem. But Evolution's really lovely. I can't think of anything else that isn't sort of out there already.
Right. I mean, we've been playing a lot of Pandemic lately, but everyone knows about Pandemic.
So the two of you have obviously been doing this professionally for quite a long time now. I'm kind of wondering what your, day-to-day or like weekly creative process is like. Like how much time are you sitting at a desk working, thinking of things? How much time is, playing games with people, playing Fallout 4, breaking down your free time or your professional time?
That's a really interesting question.
Well, if you were to take everything that's game related out of my life, there wouldn't be very much left. Because it is what I do in my free time as well as my work time. But we have a weekly Numenera game, and then our company, Monte Cook Games, there's 8 of us full time now, and we are not all located. We live in Seattle, but we're not all in Seattle. And so we do a lot of all our meetings, for example, are all virtual. And we try to get in 2 games a month with that just as a team building exercise. So that's another sort of role playing game outlet where we really kind of just explore weird ideas. Just kind of goofy one-offs of things. But as far as like on a day-to-day basis, Shanna and I are the co-owners of the company, and so there's a lot of administrative stuff that needs to be done, and a lot of the sort of not fun aspects of putting games out, dealing with print runs and distributors and things like that. But to be really honest, most of that rests on the shoulders of our COO, Charles Ryan, which frees up Shanna and I to do a lot more of the creative work, which is a really interesting place to just diverge for a second. I've worked for a lot of different game companies and whatnot, and there is this idea that you sort of have the business people in charge and the creative people work for the business people. And one of the things that I love about our company is that it's upside down that way, right? It's the creative. Shanna and I are sort of in charge, and so that means everything that we do is creative driven rather than business driven. So, even if we find that, this particular kind of product sells really well, right? If it's not something that is creatively interesting to us, we probably aren't going to do it, right? We're much more interested in the sort of the things that inspire us and create and make it fun for us, because frankly, there are probably, if we were just interested in money, there are better ways to make money.
Other businesses,
but
other industries.
Right, absolutely, no shareholders. So that means that I guess I'll speak for myself, but I probably spend about 5 hours a day just purely on creative work. Which enables me to have a pretty steady output, and then of course we have a couple of we have Bruce Cordell, who is one of our designers, who that is his entire job, and so he's also got a really steady output of material. I keep really weird hours. So when I say 5 hours a day, what I really probably mean is 5 hours a night. But
I keep less weird hours. I'm a morning person, not to talk to people or be functional, but to sit and think about deep thoughts. So woe to whoever tries to talk to me in the morning, because that's kind of a bad space. But so I try to get up. I try to get like 2 hours of work in, and then I walk the dog, and then I come back and try to get 3 or 4 hours of work in. On an ideal day, that's all creative, but most of the time that doesn't happen, right? Because we have meetings and we have, like Monty said, administrative stuff or things that, crisis that arrive, and you're just like, and then I often go back to work. Monty often starts work around 9 or 10, and so I often go back to work from like 9 to 11 and do email-y type things or those sort of things that don't require as much deep thinking. But we travel a lot, which means that my schedule is often more like work 3 hours, get on a plane, try to work for 2 hours, land somewhere, write an adventure between panels. So that's being able to be flexible is a really important part for me of living a creative life. Because there was a time when I was like, I can't write unless I have everything around me and I have 5 hours and nothing's going to impede on me and I can just sink into this. And very quickly I learned that was not a way to be productive, because I never had that. So I've learned to kind of write anywhere and anyway. But my ideal would be just a day alone in the house for 6 or 7 hours, because I like to putter too. I like to write for a couple hours and then read something or pick up a game for a little bit or go back to that. But my process is very reward driven. So I'm like, if I do these many pages, I can have a mocha. If I do this many pages, I can play Fallout. If I do this many pages. So that's kind of my process in terms of writing. And I also have a treadmill desk, because writing is very, very sedentary and I sit on my butt a lot. And so my treadmill desk is where I play games, because I've learned I can't write on it. And so that's often a reward. If I write 4,000 words, I can get up and play whatever new game I'm excited about on the treadmill desk. So that makes me sound like I'm absolutely scattered and crazy, but I'm actually really productive inside that bubble.
I think that scattering, though, is that, at least for us, is important. We were just talking with John Kovalik, who has a studio where he does all of his work away from his home and keeps sort of regular business hours there, and that would never work for me because it's too valuable to me to be able to vary up my day. I mean, there will be days when I just don't have the words in me, and I'll never end up putting a word on a page, but I will be productive in other ways. There are days where I'll be, sitting, watching a television show or something and have an idea and have to run to my computer and write up that character ability or whatever it is. And so it is probably a truer thing to say that we live at work rather than we work at home, but that works for us.
I guess actually the question goes back to something you said earlier. You mentioned books you had as kind of inspiring material, and a book of icons, and then you said you had this really beautiful book that was, and I didn't catch the name of it. You said it was full of like symbols and that sort of.
Yeah, I have a book of symbols and a book that's sort of more etymology type stuff, and I don't remember either of the names, unfortunately. And I was trying to imagine, because I just took a picture of them and put them on Twitter like a couple days ago, and I was like, can I remember the title by looking at the spine in my head? No, I can't. But there's lots of them out there, and so I often flip through and kind of find the ones with the coolest images that sort of appeal to me, and I'm not the kind of person who often sort of writes in a book and stuff, but in those I will with pencil because I feel like I want to make notes and keep things. And so, I'm sorry that I don't remember the name. Yeah, feel free. I can take a picture and send you the stack of them. Anything else?
Cool. Well, thanks very much for coming, guys.
I have the prototype of Story Please, if anybody has kids that want to come up and see it. And that's it. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you so
have
much
a great rest of your con.